Attention, incoming transmission detected. This transmission has been authorized by the 69th Potato Squadron. Please stand by to receive 69th Potato Squadron transmission. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Transmission initiation sequence is now activated.
Going on, fellow captains, it's Muse. So we are back with the Naval Academy, course number 3. Today we are going to be covering commanders, and we are also going to be talking about builds. So, as you can see up on the screen, we are back at WoWs Builds. Absolutely great resource for anybody that's new, looking for some information. This is a great place to come. I will put the link, I mean, you can see it up here, but I'll put it in the description. That way you can just click on it, get right to it. So up here you have ships, commanders, tools. You can search for whatever you're looking for, whether it be a ship, a commander, any of that stuff. If you come down to this area right here, you can select your nations, you can select your tiers, you can select your ships, and then once you're kind of into it, there's filters that you can do the same things with. You can filter things down to get specifically what you're looking for. What we are interested in is the commanders. So we're going to start out talking about the commanders, how they work, all that kind of good stuff, how to make builds on them, and then we're going to get into the overall build and everything combined and some of the other things that will play into your build. So let's start off with the commanders. Let's go with the Americans. So if you come here, you click on this, you click on USA, it's going to bring up all the USA stuff. So we have all the USA tech trees right here. So if you're wondering about a tech tree, you can click on it. It goes by tier here, class up here. So you look at the class you want, say battleship, and tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, tier 6, battleships all the way down the line, alternate line of battleships, cruisers, alternate line of cruisers, DDs, carriers. That's how that works. But we're not interested in ships right now. We are interested in commanders. So, same thing with the premium ships. You're going to get the icons up top, and these will be arranged by tier, but it's not going to have little tier numbers on the side for you. Here's what we're here for, the commanders. So, when we're looking at commanders, you have your base, basically what is referred to as vanilla commanders. These are going to be your commanders that when you first get the game, just included with the game. Some of them you may have to acquire, purchase, that sort of thing, but they're the base commanders for the game. So for like the Americans, you're talking about Gleaves, you're talking about Burke, you're talking about King. Gleaves, Burke are going to be DDs, King's going to be carriers, Dewey is going to be, and I'll be using this term later in the video. So again, these are your vanilla commanders. These are the ones that you're not going to get from collaborations, that kind of thing. These are the ones that you just, they come with the game. You're not going to have them all at first, but you will end up getting them all eventually. So there's going to be a term that I'll use talking about commanders, which is a generic commander. And that means, so if I click on Gleaves, he has the destroyer icon up here, right? So he's a destroyer commander, and that's what his perks are really going to lend themselves to, and we'll talk about more of that in here in a moment. Now, with each nation, you're going to get a generic commander, and the generic commander is kind of balanced. they can play any class, and their perks are all over the place. They have everything from DD perks to cruiser perks to battleship perks to aircraft carrier perks. So the generic commanders are very, like, I tend to use them to get builds that fill in gaps where the other commanders may not have, and we'll get into that when we get to builds, but I just want to show you what a generic commander looks like. So it says hybrid. It's not for the hybrid battleships. It's saying hybrid as in hybrid of the classes, hybrid between all the classes. And if you look at the perks, so that's going to be our base trait. We'll talk more about base trait in a moment. This will be your first perk line, second perk line, third perk line, fourth perk line, and then your legendary perks down at the bottom. So first perk here, this is going to be more of a DD. The American cruisers don't have torps, so it's pretty much exclusively a DD perk here. Burn it down can be used by pretty much any class. No fly zones for better AA. Concealment down here on perk line 2 is going to be basically a DD trait that you get on DD commanders, but can be used on other classes. Crisscross, as you can see, it covers destroyers, cruisers, battleships, all the good things, and that's what makes this commander a hybrid. They are a hybrid of all the classes. I call them generic commanders. Game, I guess, calls them hybrid, which can get confusing since you have hybrid ships. So we're just going to stick with generic commanders. So you have generic commanders, and then you have dedicated commanders for each class. Usually, pretty sure it's two. You get one generic, and then you get 2 dedicated commanders per class at minimum. Some nations, some of the ones that have just come into the game, they may only have 1 commander for the entire nation. They may only have 1 commander for a class. Other ones are going to have 2 and 3. The Americans actually, I believe, have 3 DD commanders. So you have Leaves, Burke, and who's the other one? Halsey. So that's 3 DD commanders, dedicated DD commanders. You also have multiple battleship, so it can vary between the nations, but basically the base is 2 per class and 1 generic. There are, again, exceptions. There's going to be variation depending on the nation, but that's kind of the general rule, is 2 dedicated per class. And usually what you're going to get with your 2 dedicated is you're going to be looking at one that, you know, kind of, for DDs, one will be, say, a gunboat commander, and the other would be a torp boat commander. For cruisers, one's going to be a gun commander, one's going to be a agility, speed, that sort of thing commander. For battleships, you're going to have one that focuses on dispersion and guns, and then you're going to have another that focuses on secondaries and tanking. And for carriers, standardly, there's typically just 1 carrier commander per nation. There are some exceptions to that. There are, again, collaboration commanders that completely change things up, because a lot of these collaboration commanders tend to come with things that really change the flavor of a ship, and that makes a lot of these guys worth picking up. Now, if you're not spending a whole lot of money on the game, I would research, 1, understand like what class you're trying to focus, and then 2, research like what commanders are good for that class in your nation. And for example, if you like American gunboats, DDs, this would be a commander to pick up, Vincent Mordoff. He has a base trait that is absolutely usable on any DD in the game that you want to turn into a gunboat. So, thing with base traits is they can be used for inspirations on other commanders. When we flip over to the game, I'm going to show you that. So yeah, you can take this base trait and put this on pretty much any other commander in the game. It's a very strong base trait because it's maxed out at 6% of reload time. So if you're looking for a gunboat build, that's kind of the way to go. Now, on American destroyers, you can use the base trait on any other commander. You can't use any of the perks. So these are exclusive to Mordoth. These perk lines up here and the legendary perks. Only the base trait can be used on other commanders. But his perks give him, combined with his base trait, he is a very, very nasty gunboat commander for the Americans. So yes, if you're looking for DD gunboats, that would be somebody to go to. And again, just kind of know what class you want to play, what nation you're focusing, and then go do the research of, like, you know, if you're in Facebook groups, go ask, hey, you know, I'm looking to run this nation, this class, what's a good commander on these ships? And people will be more than happy to help you out. I know I'm in the Facebook groups all the time answering people's questions. You will get people that'll give you a hard time. Sometimes they'll be a little salty. Just ignore those people, because there's a lot of helpful people in this community. So, you know, put your energy where it needs to be. Don't, you know, if somebody wants to be a jerk, let them be a jerk. Ignore them and, you know, pay attention to the people that are actually trying to help you. But, yeah. So, again, depending on what class, what nation you're running, is if you're going to go out and buy collaboration commanders, you want to find out who to buy first. Unless you're just a whale with, you know, a huge bank account and you want to go out and get everything, by all means do that. I'll see you out there. We'll do that. So yeah, that's a quick look at commanders. And now I want to switch over to the game itself. And we're going to talk about how to utilize some of those commanders. So, as you can see, I'm got my game screen going here. We're going to slide over to the commander section. Now, when you go onto the commander section itself, you're going to see the resources, your commander resources, at the top here before you click into it. Right above where it says Manage and Promote Commanders. So, the little circle with the diamond in it, that is going to be your insignias. That is one of the rare currencies for promoting commanders. So be cautious where later, you know, if you've been playing the game 5-6 years, and, you know, you'll end up with more stuff than you have places to spend it. But early on, your resources are going to be very limited. So be very careful with insignias. They're basically used to promote commanders once they've attained a certain level. So once your commander gets to, I believe it's level 14, you will need insignias as well as promotion orders to promote them. So that's the hollow diamond over there on the left that says 26. The solid diamond, it says 158. That's going to be your promotion orders. That is used to get commanders up to that level 14, where you need to start using insignias. So up until level 14, it's going to cost you, you see where it says 3.2 million, that is my commander XP. So up to 14, it's going to cost you promotion orders and commander XP to promote. After that, it's going to cost insignias, possibly promotion orders on that first level, and your commander XP. Then you have something completely separate, which is the legendary perk, which we just talked about a moment ago. That's the one down at the bottom. For legendary perks, you're going to need, where that little 6 is, that blue piece of paper there, it's called a commendation. And that's what's used for promoting your legendary levels. So you don't need to have any specific level on your commander to gain legendary levels. You can literally have a level 1 commander with a level 4 legendary perk. And level 4 is where the legendary perk maxes out. I don't recommend that. I would develop the commander. Usually a good place for commanders, like a good healthy spot for getting a commander to, without, because as you go up higher and higher and higher in levels, it's going to consume more and more resources. So the most bang for your buck usually is level 12, legendary level 2. And that's going to be the absolute most bang for your buck. That will max out your first 2 perk lines. You'll have decent stats on the 3rd and 4th perk lines, and your legendary level will be halfway there. And for the resources, that is the most efficient. So if you're like struggling for resources, don't go beyond 12-2. Level 12, legendary 2. That will get you, if you ever watch me play, you watch me stream, you watch my video, I have plenty of commanders that are just sitting at 12-2 because I'm not willing to invest any more resources. For the returns after 12-2 start becoming negligible, and the closer you get to 16-4, the less and less and less you're going to get back off what you're putting in. So really, like, maxing people out is, you know, you're looking for very small gains at that point. So let's dive on in here. Again, we have the nations. We had the Americans up on the other screen, so we'll take a look at the Americans over here. Now, we've discussed Geises before. Geises they're not commanders. They are basically skins you can put over commanders. So, like, if I look at this Geis, it says the commander's Vic Rattlehead, but it's not Vic Rattlehead. Let's go in there and take a look. So I clicked on the X button on PlayStation. Then we're going to click on the right stick to see our Geises. If you look down in the bottom right corner there, it says show Geis bio, show Geises headquarters. So we're going to click on the right stick. That'll take us into our Geises. Here we can see all the Geises we have that are available to the Americans. If they are yellow, that means they are already equipped on somebody. You can switch them, but it costs commander XP. So that's the Geis we have equipped. It's got a blue line around it. That's how we know that's the one we have. And then if we go all the way to the top of the Geises, I would click on this to take the Geis off, because this is the actual commander underneath. So the commander is George Dewey, who is the generic commander for the Americans that we just spoke about in the previous section. So yeah, Geises are not commanders, and a lot of people seem to get that confused when they see them in the store. They're like, oh, that looks like a really cool commander. It's not a commander. Geises are basically just skins for the commander. They give you tracers. They give you cool effects. They don't affect your build at all. Yeah, so that would be Geises. So this is what, like, you saw what it looked like on WoW's builds. This is what it looks like on the actual game screen when you have a commander. So your base trait is going to be right here. This is your base trait. This is for each commander, whatever their base trait is, when you use them as an inspiration on another commander, that is what they will bring to the party. So if I use George Dewey, who's under Vic Rattlehead here, on any other commander as an inspiration, I'm going to get torpedo acquisition range plus 7.2 at the level I have. So inspirations are over here. This is how you add inspirations. So let's go to a different commander real quick, and let's say I wanted to put George Dewey on there. Let's take a look at this. So this is a DD commander. I have DD inspirations here, but if I wanted to put George Dewey on here, I would click on it, and then I would scroll through and find George Dewey in here somewhere. You can filter these, by the way, if you hold square, like if we want to filter it. I can look for the class of ship that I'm looking for. Unfortunately, it doesn't have generic, so we're just going to skip that. And then you can also sort by level, by legendary, by nation. So if you're having a hard time finding a certain commander, you can actually use the filter and find them a little quicker. But again, I want this one. And then yeah, we were gonna do George Dewey. I did not want to put Norman Scott on there, so we're gonna waste some XP here, but who cares? So there's George Dewey. So at the bottom here, right under the commanders, when you scroll through, you can see what everybody's base trait is, and it will be how much of that base trait you get depends on the level of the commander. Where you see it says Mastery, maxed out is 20. That's a 16-4 commander. So he's missing 2 levels, which are his 2 legendary levels. He's a 16, level 16, legendary 2. So he's missing 2 levels. His mastery is 18 out of 20. At 20 out of 20, his base trait maxes out. So if we want to take him, we're just going to click on him. And then it'll put him on there. And then we have an option. We can either run a couple battles. If you look over there, right under his name, George Dewey, on the right-hand side, it says Adopting Inspiration. New Inspiration is currently being adopted. It will become available after 7 battles. Or you can use Commander XP. So you can literally, if you're not trying to spend the Commander XP, you can go out, you can do 7 battles, AI, it doesn't matter. Just get your 7 battles in, and it will automatically adopt the new inspiration. Or if you're just in a rush to get it going, just spend the Commander XP, and it will be instantaneous. Let's put back, who did I have? I gotta put my people back. Can't be having this. There we go. Okay. It's not going to charge me anything because that's who was on there originally, so I actually haven't changed anything, so I'm not charged anything. So yeah, that is a good look at that. The base trait system, the inspiration system, that is how you're going to get inspirations. Base trait we talked about, inspirations we talked about, and then we're going to come over here to the perk lines. So when crafting a build, you can obviously go to WoWs builds, look up a ship, and there's plenty of builds available there. So you just kind of scroll down. Let's go back over there real quick, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Come back to WoWs builds. Let's pick a ship. Let's say, stay with the Americans, just because we're here. Let's say Dallas. Let's go Dallas. American Light Cruiser, Tier 5. So we want to build for it. So when you click on Dallas, it's going to give you all kinds of information, all kinds of stats. You can go to, you know, the line right here. If there's other ships in the line you maybe want to compare things to. There's all your stats, and these are all going to be base stats, which once you start changing things on a ship, like you can never fully remove a commander from a ship. So you're always going to have, once you put a commander on, you have to have some sort of commander on there. There's no way to just go back to the default state. So sometimes it can be a little difficult to get base stats. Base stats are very important for deciding your build. We'll talk about it in a second. I'm going to go into the stats screen and show you, like, if I just got a ship, how I would decide to set that ship up. But we're going to come down here. Here's damage records for it. Here's people's reviews of the ship. Peer comparison, it compares Dallas to other ships of that class in that tier that are similar. So you can just kind of see, you know, if you pick a stat, let's say reload, it'll sort it by reload. So Nuremberg has the fastest reload at the tier, tied with Makarov. Slowest at the tier is going to be Graf Spee at 20 seconds, which makes sense. It's massive guns. But then down at the very bottom, we have builds. And these are all community builds. These are all builds that people have put in there. So, yeah, there's 28 builds total for Dallas. And so basically, you know, you can kind of look at what they have for the names of them. See who created it, the date it was created. Data it's created is kind of relevant just because this game changes every update. And things get buffed, things get nerfed. So a build from 2020 may no longer be relevant because so much has changed. So you kind of want to find something that's decently more recent. Like here we have May 2024, HE spam build. Let's go take a look at that. And you come into it, it's going to tell you your modules right here. So there's all your ship mods. Just like when I do a video on a ship, I talk about, you know, here's my build, here's what mods I have on it. It's going to talk about the commander. So it's Norman Scott, the American Cruiser Commander. There's your first perk line, there's the perk. There's your second perk line, there's the perk. Third perk line, there's the perk. Fourth perk line, there's the perk. And your legendary perk, and go with refill station. Then if you come over here, these are the inspirations they're using. Now, if you don't have a commander, that's not what I wanted to do. If you don't have a commander, then you need to acquire it to be able to use it as an inspiration. So you may not necessarily have exactly what is recommended here as far as inspirations go, but kind of, you know, if you click on this guy, it tells you what his base trait is. Okay, range, 6% range. So you can find something either similar. You can find a way to offset that in the build that you don't have that and go with a different inspiration. And there's ways around that if you don't have the inspiration that a build is telling you to run. But yeah, these will be your inspirations over here. These will be your perks. That'll be your legendary. And these are your modules. So anytime you pull up a build on here, it's basically a how to set your shit up. I said ship. No. It sounded a lot like, yeah, I know what it sounded like. I said ship, S-H-I-P. Let's go. All right. So yeah, that is how you would go in and take a look at a build. So yeah, that translates over to our game screen over here. So we would literally come in, we want our Norman Scott. Where's our Norman Scott? I don't even know which, I believe this is my Norman Scott. Yes, this is my Norman Scott. If we look under the Geist, it's Miss Santa Geist, but hey, look, we got Norman Scott. That's the actual commander, so that's the one we just looked at on WoWs builds. So you would come over here, you don't have to, you can't ever change the base trait. Base trait is what it is. So then we would come over here, we would put, you know, this on the first perk, this on the second perk, I forget what they had on the third, but yeah, you just go down the list and put the perks they say to put on there. And then you come over here and swap your inspirations to whatever inspirations it's telling you to run. Once you've played the game enough, you won't even need to go to WoW's builds. You'll just kind of have an understanding of this is how I want to set this ship up. So, now that we've gone through the basics of commanders, we're going to move into talking a little more about builds. So, there's more than just a commander to the build. The commander is the heart and soul of the build. That is what's going to affect everything the most, is the commander. But there's other things that play into a build. Let's go into, I'm just going to take it in AI in case I accidentally go into a battle, because I'm doing a video, and if I go into a battle, I'm going to have to leave, and people will be salty. So if I accidentally click on the button here, not a big deal. Let's go over to, since we're talking American cruisers, we're just going to stay with that. Keep it all streamlined. So I have my American cruisers up here, and I have a number of them. I have a number of different builds. I have different things going on. I'm trying to see. Okay, so I have Norman Scott on my Cleveland. There we go. That's the exact commander we just looked at. American cruiser commander. So there's a quick, as you look at that on your screen, that's a quick synopsis of the commander. So as you're looking through ships, you can kind of tell like how you have things set up. So I know when I click on my Cleveland, this is a gunboat build. Norman Scott, that's what Norman Scott does, is guns. So I can see it's 16.4. I can see what the base trait is. I can see what the perks are, and I can see what legendary perk I have. Now, other things that are going to affect your build are, we covered it a moment ago, are going to be the modules. So what you put in your module slots is going to have an effect on the build. As you can see, there's very different stats for each one. So this is definitely going to affect your build right here, like these modules. So when you're coming up with a build, or you're crafting a build, or you're taking one from WoW's builds, you want things to jive. You want things to work to the most advantage you can gain through your build. This is a game of a lot of small gains. It's, you know, 2%, 3%, 5%, that kind of thing. And those little differences, when you pile them all together, make a big difference. So yeah, these are going to definitely affect your build. your first slot, what you're usually, I'm just going to talk about what you're usually going to find in these slots. There are definitely exceptions. The fourth slot does not technically become available till tier 7, but there are ships below tier 7 that do have fourth mod slots, and the fourth mod slot is going to be very, very important here in a moment. We'll talk about why. So for tier 6 and under, you're mostly going to have these guys right here, these three, and for lower than that, you're only going to have the first two, or possibly, if you're playing low enough tier, only that first module slot. So first mod slot, sorry. Alright, so first mod slot, we have aiming systems mod 1, we have secondaries, so if you're going for a secondary build, you're going to want to equip this one. You have an AA mod, and you have basically a traverse mod. Second slot, you're going to have rudder shift time, you're going to have propulsion, and you're going to have damage control. All of these can be effective if you understand your build. And if you understand your build, any one of these can be used in absolutely devastating ways. Even a lot of people think this perk is useless, but if you're building a tanking build, minus 15 to flood duration and fire duration is huge. Absolutely huge. So even if somebody thinks that's useless, if you're specifically building a tanking build, that is more than viable, and it can be the difference between winning or losing a fight when a fire goes out that somebody thought was permad, and you don't die. Here in the third, we have another rudder perk, just like we had in the second slot. This one is going to give you a lot more rudder shift. A lot more rudder shift. It's going to give you a faster repair time. Very, very good rudder perk here in slot 3. This perk is called RGA. Range of Guaranteed Acquisition is what people call it. The game calls it Target Acquisition Mod 1. But people, when you hear people talk about RGA, Range of Guaranteed Acquisition, you can see it down there on the bottom. It says RGA of ships plus 50%. Range of Guaranteed Acquisition. So without this mod, your standard range of guaranteed acquisition in this game is 2 kilometers. Always 2 kilometers. Never going to be anything different. There's no ship they release where they're like, it just automatically gets, 3 or 4 kilometers. No. It's going to get 2 kilometers. This mod will extend that to 3 kilometers. So if there's a DD in smoke and you push it, without this mod, you're not going to see that DD. You're not going to get a proxy spot on that DD until 2 kilometers. You have to be 2 kilometers from them before you can both see each other. With this mod, you'll be able to see them at 3 kilometers. They'll only be able to see you at 2 kilometers. The other purpose of this mod, if you are running a ship, and this probably isn't going to come in until the higher tiers, if you are running a ship with extremely long range, like I'm talking over 20 kilometers, you need this mod to be able to see spotted targets downrange. So if you're over 20 kilometers from a ship without this mod, even if your team has them spotted, it will not res up on your screen. It will not show up on your screen. You will not be able to see that ship to fire at it. If you equip this mod, you'll now be able to see past 20 kilometers. So if you have a ship that has, 21, 22 kilometers of range, you need to have this mod to shoot at things at that range. So that's basically what your target acquisition is for. The 2 things it's really good for is pushing DDs and smoke with that RGA, or just other proxy proxy spotting people. Proxy spot is basically when you come into that range of guaranteed acquisition. It's just called a proxy spot because you're in proximity to another ship. Or if you're trying to fire at extremely long ranges, and that's what you're going to use this target acquisition mod for. The biggest mod people run is going to be this one right here. This is by far the most used mod probably in this game. So, what does Concealment Mod 1 do? Well, one, it's going to lower our concealment by 10%. For DDs, that's huge. For cruisers, that's huge. For battleships, It helps, but it's not huge. Why people really choose this specific perk is the incoming fire dispersion plus 5%. This is a part of their build that a lot of people don't even realize is part of their build, but they're basically opening up the enemy's firing circle and making it larger and making themselves harder to hit by 5%, which is fantastic, and that's why this is one of the most used mods in the game. Then we're going to go to our 4th mod slot. Again, you won't get this till tier 7. This is an extremely important slot after tier 7, and I'm going to show you why. Let's leave the American ships for a moment here. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back. We're going to cover what's in there first, and then we'll talk about why it's that important. So let's go back to Cleveland. Yeah, that's why I went into AI. See it? Look at that. How smart am I? I'm a smart cookie. Alright. So what we have here, in this 4th mod slot, you have main battery reload booster. Now, when you're doing builds, something to take into consideration is there's perks that give you quite a bit, but they also have a penalty to them. And so you want to be understanding of the penalties that you're incurring for the gains that you're getting. So here, we get a reload time of minus 15%. So our guns are going to reload 10%. Our guns are going to reload 10% faster, but we lose 15% on our traverse speed. So if I'm doing a build on a ship that already has a slow traverse speed, this is not a mod I want to put on there. This is not, even though it gives me a faster reload, if I'm already having an issue with the traverse speed, I don't want to compound that issue by putting, minus 15% to that traverse speed. So even if I really want that reload mod, I would choose one of the other mods just to not take that penalty. If you have something that has good traverse speed, then by all means take the reload mod. And that's what you're going to want to look out for, is the penalties. Not just the positive stats, but the penalties for taking something. And does that work with your build? So then we have gunfire control system. This is going to give us better dispersion and more range. We have AA mod. This is going to, the first one in the first module slot was range. This is going to give us more AA damage. And then we have secondary battery. So the first slot with the secondary module, that was range. This is going to be reload. So that's those. And now we will talk about why this slot is so important. So a while back, I think it was about a year or two ago, they introduced what they call epic and legendary mods. And these can drastically affect your build. This is not going to be a newer player kind of thing, unless you're just dumping stupid money into the game. This will be a more veteran-y, like after you've spent some time, a year, 2-3 years in the game, you'll earn enough steel. Steel's the currency up here. We talked about it in our basics video. But it's a veteran currency. And we talked about you could buy ships with it, you could buy, camos with it, you could buy all kinds of stuff out of the store with it. What you can also buy with it, why do I have, we need to go right here, that's where I want to be, right here. I want to take a look at my Atlantico, because I know I have this on there. So if you look at my modules, you see that golden one on the end? See the golden one on the end? That is a legendary mod. So you're going to have 2 mods you can buy with steel. One's an epic, and one's a legendary. And what they're going to do, if you have the legendary, you will get both the epic as well as the legendary perks. If you have the epic, you will get only the epic perks. So you can see it tells you what it does for both of those. And this is a secondary legendary mod. So you can have anything that goes in slot 4 can become a epic or legendary mod. So it started off looking like one of these guys, and then we just upgraded it to an epic and then to a legendary. To go to an epic mod, it's going to be 500 steel. To go to a legendary mod, it's going to be 2,000 steel. So it's not something you're going to have on every ship. So when you're doing these mods, you really, really, really want to make sure you're putting them on the ships that are your money makers, your XP makers, your ships that you're going to be playing quite a bit. So yeah, for every 30,000 damage, we're going to get faster reload time. That's the epic part of this mod. And then for the legendary, when we get a kill, for every kill we get, we're going to get 5% more damage on our secondaries. So yeah, you can see how this can drastically affect a build. It can make... You're not going to see a lot from these early game. Like, before you have damage, before you have kills, you're not going to get a whole lot out of these. But late game, these are going to turn you into a monster. These are going to turn you into an absolute monster late game. And that's what these are good for, as far as how they affect a build. So yeah, for the more damage we get, the faster we reload our secondaries, and for the more kills we get, it doesn't matter how we get the kill. If we get the kill, we get more damage to our secondaries. Now, both of those, the epic and the legendary, do have a cap. I believe it's like you can stack it like 4 times and then you're capped out, if I remember correctly. So with the epic, you can get up to 20%. I'm sorry. I'm trying to look at what they're saying here. All right. So with the epic, you can get 80% faster reload, or is that the cap? Okay. So it's 5%. So yeah, you can get 20% faster reload, maxed out, capped out, which is a good bit of reload. And then for the legendary, it stacks damage up 5% for each one. And that caps out, I also believe, at 4 kills. So that is a maximum of extra 20% damage. So 20% faster reload and 20% faster damage drastically changes your build at late game, right? Right? Yeah, that's pretty nasty. So that's something to be aware of at tier 7 and above on that 4th mod slot. Definitely something that can affect the build. Again, not for beginners, more for people that have been around for a while. And if you are just starting out, that is something you will have to work towards. It's not going to... I mean, like, if you just buy out a campaign and then just grind steel for a month, you can actually get, like, an epic pretty quickly. And, like, 2-3 campaigns doing that, you can actually upgrade that to a legendary fairly quickly. But they're not going to come quick. They're not going to be on every ship. So choose wisely where you place these. This thing, I'm not going to lie, with the legendary mod on it is just absolutely kind of nasty. So yeah, that is going to talk about the modules. So we've talked about commanders, how they affect the builds. We talked about the modules. We're going to look at a couple other things that are going to affect your build, and these are things that sometimes people don't think about. So, one, you have your battle boosters. These guys are just going to get you more resources. These first 4. On carriers, it's different. You can't equip this last one. You can just equip the first 4 to get more resources. What the last one is going to do is, it's not going to get you more resources. It's not going to do anything to that effect. What it is going to do is give you some stats. So this is, if you're playing super sweaty, this is a very important to make sure you have going on your ships. So the first, the level 1 common battle booster is just going to give you +3 maximum movement speed. Again, this is a game of small gains, 2, 3, 4, 5%. So 3% extra speed, that might only be a knot, but if that's stacked with other things, that can make a difference. For the rare battle booster, you're going to get max movement speed, 3%, so the same as the first one. But then we also get cooldown time for all consumables, -5%, so your cooldown your consumables come back faster. Then for the third one, we're going to have those two. Plus, you're going to get 3% main battery range. Obviously, as you go up, it's going to become rarer. So like these little 3-star Admiral boosters over here at the end, they're going to be rare. So I only have 40 of those. These are just because I run these on every ship, so I've kind of run out my stock of them. But you can see I have plenty of these, so we're going to be running those until I rebuild my stockpile over here. But yeah, that is something that is going to affect your stats. So you want to make sure you have some sort of green booster on the end down there. If you're in AI, take your boosters off. You don't need them in AI. Save them for PvP. Don't waste them for AI. Then down here, the flag doesn't affect your stats at all. So flag is just cosmetic. Run whatever you want to run. But your camo is going to give you stats. So a maxed out camo is going to give you minus 4.5% detectability. That's your concealment. So we're lowering your detectability and giving you better concealment. So that's fairly important. And when you first throw, let's go over here. Sorry, didn't mean to click out of that. So if I put a level 1, you see what the stats are for a maxed out camo. That's a fully maxed out level 4 camo. Then you come down to level 1. Now, if I just equip it, it's going to give you the max value as if it's a level 4, but it's a disposable. So like if I put this on right now, just like that. Okay, so if I put that on just like that, it is a disposable camo. You see I have 53 of them. So every battle I'm going to consume one of those camos, but I get the max stats out of it. So early game, that's something to think about. You know, if you're looking to maximize the stats you're getting out of the camo, that is a way to do it. What you can also do, let me find a camo I really don't care about here. So let's take this one. What I can also do now, on top of just making it, we'll go back to that real quick. And then, on top of just putting a disposable on there and getting the max stats, you can convert, basically melt down some paint. It tells you how many, so it took 7 of those. And I made a permanent camo. So this is not disposable, this camo now. This camo, if I put this on my ship, it never goes away. It doesn't consume anything. It is there for the duration. However, permanent camos have levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can see, so if we go back to the maxed out one, you can see the stats there. Minus 4.5, see detectability, and 4.5 incoming fire dispersion, which are both very, very good stats. Very good stats to add to your build. But if we go to the brand new one, level 1, it's only 0.5 on both. So if you're going to do permanent camos, you want to get them leveled up to 4 so that you're getting those max stats. And it's up to you to decide whether you'd rather run a disposable and get the max stats. And again, this isn't for AI, this is for PvP. If you're going in AI, don't be wasting camos. Don't be wasting camos. A tier 1 camo, tier 1 permanent camo, it costs 7 camos, so that's 7 battles that you would have run as a disposable. You make it a permanent, and your tier 1 camo is more than enough for an AI. If you're going in PvP, you want to make sure you have the best ship for the job for your team. You don't want to come in there with something broken that, you know, you're going to have to depend on the team to carry you. So yeah, that will give you a permanent cat, and then it's on you to level it up. So if we come down here to level it, we can melt a paint. So we did the conversion. I'm sorry, it was 12 of them to convert it. To melt it. If we go to melt, so I would take these paints right here and melt them down into 574 of the little paint buckets. The paint buckets are what's used to level the permanent camo. So coming back up here, if I wanted to level this, you can see it's telling me not enough paint. So I would have to come back down here, melt down some of these camos down here to the little paint buckets, make sure I have enough paint buckets, and then come back up here and level up that. But that is something that a lot of people don't take into consideration in their build. One build I can think of in particular that I'm not going to get into, that's more advanced. We'll get into that later on down the road. How about that? So, yeah, just some added things to take into consideration with a build. Now, let's talk about, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here and go back to the American cruisers, because I've been dealing with them the whole video. So when I'm deciding how to build a ship, this is my process for when I get a brand new ship. It comes out of a crate, or I just bought a brand new tech tree ship. This is the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to walk through it with you. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to upgrade and loadout on the ship. And most of you should know how to get here. So there's the upgrades. I'm not concerned with that. That when you get a new ship, all this is going to be empty. We are concerned with this page. So one, we want to look at the shells, what the reload time is, how much damage they're doing, what kind of range they get, and just kind of make a mental note of that. If it has torpedoes, they'll be up here on this line. If it has any other sort of armament, it'll be up here on this line. Not secondaries, just primary weapons. And you want to go through those and get an idea in your head of what the stats are on the primary armaments. Then you're going to come down here, you're going to look at your consumables. What's available to me consumable-wise? What's my DC look like? My damage control. Do I have sonar? Do I have radar? Do I have defensive anti-air fire? Do I have heals? What do I have for consumables? That's the next thing you want to look at. And consumables, due to some of the commander perks, can very drastically affect a build. Some of the commander perks literally work with some of the consumables. So by running a consumable that you may not think is ideal, for example, fighter planes, you may be able to come up with a very nasty build that isn't conventional. So yeah, I want to know what the consumables are. These will be all empty when you get a new ship. Flag will be empty. Camo will be empty. So none of that matters. Then we're going to come over here and we're going to look at our base stats before we add anything, before we... any of that. And we're going to go through and we're going to look at our base stats. What we're looking for is what's the ship's strengths, what's the ship's weaknesses, how can I turn this ship into a monster? So look at the hit points, look at the armor. There is a separate armor viewer. We'll go over there in a second. So yeah, you want to take note of your main gun stats. Your secondary stats are going to be under the artillery page. All of this you want to note. So when you're looking at, for example, the base range of the secondary armament over there on the right-hand side under where it says 127mm Mark 32 6x2 127 millimeters. If you're looking at secondary builds, you want to look at what the base firing range is. You want to look at what the reload is. And if you start playing enough ships, you'll have a good idea of like what's a good range. And if you don't play enough ships to understand that, we can go right back to our resource of WoWs builds. So let's say we wanted to turn Cleveland into a secondary cruiser. So let's go look up Cleveland. Let's go to USA Cruiser. It took me off the Americans, but that's okay. We're just going to go to tier 7s. Tier 7. Where are you, Cleveland? You would be in the seas. There's Cleveland. Okay, so we're going to pull this up. Now, we're going to have the peer comparison. Remember? We talked about that earlier in the video. Remember that? So, you can hit this little select columns, and now you can choose any of the stats that you're actually looking to see. So we're going to get rid of hit points, we're going to get rid of AP damage, we're going to get rid of max speed, we're going to get rid of reload, we're going to get rid of surface detectability. And the first thing I want to do is, again, you're not going to run a secondary build Cleveland, but, I mean, for the memes, for the memes. But if you do, and you're trying to, this applies more to, I'm just not on a battleship, so we're doing it with Cleveland, but if I wanted to see if this ship is viable as a secondary ship, we're going to look at the base stats of every ship at the tier that's in that class and see how we compare. So where's Cleveland on this list? Let's see. Looks like everybody at this tier for cruisers has about the same secondary base range. Mines goes out a little further, Shill goes out a little further, and then look at Riga. Like, Riga might actually be viable as a secondary ship. 7 kilometers, that's kind of ridiculous. Let's go. Alright, so where's Cleveland on our list here? This is sorted, and again, it doesn't matter because they're all kind of even. So yeah, there's Cleveland. So it's viable because it's on par with everything else of the tier. To give you a better example, let's look at tier 7 battleships, because that will give us a better comparison. So a decent American battleship for secondaries would be Massachusetts. Let's go to Massachusetts. And then we want to go to peer comparison. And again, we're going to go to select columns. We're going to take off all the things, and we want to look at range. We want to look at how does Massachusetts compare in range to everybody else that's here for secondaries. Secondary range, there it is. Then we're going to sort it, make sure it's all sorted out. There you go. So these are the shortest down here. And the longest are going to be down here. And as you can see, Massachusetts is down by the longer range. So it's only 700 meters less than the max for base range, which means you can get them out there with a build quite far. So even though 7 kilometers is the base range, by the time, so this is Bismarck B, right? So it's saying 7.7 kilometers base range. Let's go look at my Bismarck B with an actual full build, and we'll see what you can do off the base stats, like how much you can change a ship from the base stats. So it was 7.7 kilometers base for Bismarck B. Let's go look at Bismarck B and see what the range is with my build. 7.7 kilometers base. There's Bismarck B. Let's go to the stats. Secondaries. Over there in the right-hand column, you are going to see 12 kilometers on my build. So even though the base is 7.7, once you start adding all the things from your build, all those little 2, 3, 5%, we end up with a 12-kilometer secondary. That's why when you're going through, you want to look at those base stats and understand, okay, the ship's good at this, it's good at this, it can be effective at this, it sucks at this. And get that picture of what it's good at in your head. And that's going to affect what commander you want to run. That's going to, if something has amazing torpedoes, but just garbage guns, you don't want to run a gunboat commander on it. You want to run a torpedo commander on it. And that's going to affect your build. So this is how you do that. You come in here, and you take a look at the stats. You figure out what it's good at, what it's not good at. If you don't understand, you're not far enough along to understand, the whole different millimeters of guns, what overpens, what doesn't, all that kind of stuff, just look at the rating. You can see survivability, 83 rating, artillery, 87 rating, AA defense, 70 rating. And those ratings will give you an idea of what the ship's good. Like, if you come to a brand new ship and it has 100 artillery rating, guess what? Go guns. If you come to a ship and it has 96 maneuverability and everything else is low, go with agility. Go with torps, go with concealment. Like, whatever the ship is good at, you kind of want to emphasize those things. If you try to take a ship that is bad at something and improve what's bad, you are going to get minimal gains, and it's just going to stay bad, but now it's also not going to be good at anything. So you really want to focus what's good on ships and not try to offset the negatives. You want to accept the negatives, like, this is a negative for this ship, but this is the positives, and this is what I can do with it. And that's how you're going to formulate builds, or that's how you're going to get a new ship and decide, oh, I want to make this a torp boat. Let me go look up, you know, torp boat builds on WoWs builds to create the torp boat that I'm looking for. Then we have armor. So this is your armor viewer. This is, as you play, you will get a better sense of what this is trying to tell you. Some of the most important things to look at on ships are the bow, the belt, the turret armor, the stern, the size of the superstructure, because the larger superstructure you have, the easier it is for people to farm superstructure. So that's just something you want to keep in your mind. Not a huge thing, but something to be aware of. Am I farmable? And then lastly, you're going to want to take a look at the citadel. And this is the thing that when you go broadside and people hit it, it makes you want to cry because your ship just gets absolutely murdered. So that is something you want to have an understanding of. What it looks like. Is it above the waterline? Does it have bad angles? Like, see how it's flat on that back end back there? So if I'm just going straight away from somebody, if I'm just pointing my stern straight at them, and they go through that stern armor, the outside armor, this armor, if they go through that, they have a nice flat surface. Now, if I turn my ship and I present them at this kind of angle, right here, when they hit that, it is no longer flat. It's both ends of the citadel are at 45 degrees, right? So that is something when I'm looking at that armor viewer, I want to take into consideration. This is, if I'm going to tank with this part of the ship, this is how I'm going to do that, because I don't want to get hit straight through my stern, because that's going to hurt. So let me get hit over here. Let me get hit over here. Let me not get hit here, and let me not get hit here. Maybe here. Maybe here. Like, maybe, because it is thicker up there than it is in the back. So you have a chance. But that back one, if you're just pointing straight at stern end, like, you're going to get punched through there. You're going to get punched through there, and it's going to hurt. So yeah, that's kind of what you want to look at for the armor viewer. So, we've discussed commanders. We've discussed modules. We've discussed consumables, we've discussed camos, we've discussed boosters, we have discussed stat viewers, armor viewers, WoWs builds. A lot of information in this video, so you may have to go back and watch it over. Once again, same as last time, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them down in the comments, and I will either provide you an answer, or I will go out and research for you to get you an answer. That is all I have for you, captains. I hope you all had an amazing Christmas. Good hunting, fair seas. I will catch you next time. Bye.
Re-verify our range to target. One ping only.
Captain, I just...
Give me a ping, Vasily. One ping only, please.
Aye, Captain.